My fiancé canceled our $60,000 wedding 5 minutes before it started with a cruel text message. "You're too ordinary for me." Hi everyone, I'm writing this while watching the waves crash on the shore. It seemed like a good time to recount everything that happened. Maybe, hopefully, it will help someone else recognize the red flags I ignored. It took me 4 months to process everything enough to write this. My name is Andrew. I'm 30 years old, and I was with 27-year-old Lauren for almost 4 years. We were the classic example of opposites attract. She was spontaneous, impulsive, always suggesting ideas like, "Let's go to Vegas right now," or "Let's drop everything and backpack through Europe." Meanwhile, I worked 50 or 60 hours a week as a civil engineer, building a stable future for both of us. That was our dynamic. She provided the spark, and I provided the structure. For the first 2 years, it worked. She told me she loved my stability, that she felt safe with me. She called me her rock. We moved in together after a year and a half to a simple but comfortable apartment in the city. It had a small balcony where we used to sit with coffee on weekends, talking about our future, kids, a house in the suburbs, the whole dream. I started saving for a ring. I proposed after 3 years together, and we set the date for the following year. There was plenty of time to organize the perfect wedding. But in the last few months before the wedding, everything started to change. I can pinpoint the exact moment things went south. 6 months before the wedding, Lauren became obsessed with Instagram. It wasn't just a hobby. Everything had to be aesthetically perfect to post. She spent hours editing photos, almost obsessively checking her followers. Our dinner conversations became monologues about her personal brand and how she was about to be discovered by sponsors. Arguments about money also started, not because of a lack of it, but because, according to her, we deserved more. She compared herself to other couples she saw on social media who traveled nonstop or lived in mansions. "Why not us?" she'd ask. "Look at Chloe and Jason, they're going to Bali next month." The funny thing was that while I worked full-time, she only had a part-time marketing job 3 days a week. But when I tried to talk to her about financial reality, she called me boring or too practical. I clearly remember when, 2 months before the wedding, she made a comment that seemed like a joke, but didn't feel like one. "You know what the perfect wedding gift would be? A Tesla. We're going to be a power couple." We didn't laugh, but inside, I felt uncomfortable. Then came the wedding registry. I almost had a heart attack when I saw it: a $900 blender, $500 sheets, a $1,200 coffee maker. When I suggested we cut back a little, she gave me a speech about how these things were investments in the future. A month before the wedding, she started being more secretive with her phone. She took calls in another room, received messages at odd hours, and said it was for wedding surprises or problems with the bridesmaids. One night, 3 weeks before the event, she arrived late after a supposed final dress fitting. Her makeup was different, and she had a strange energy. I asked her about the dress, and she replied that everything had gone perfectly without looking me in the eye. Then she went straight to the shower. I found a receipt in her purse from an expensive downtown restaurant. The time coincided exactly with the dress fitting. I didn't say anything. What was I going to do? Accuse her of something for checking her purse? I decided to swallow my doubts, thinking that maybe it was a surprise for me. The next day, I noticed that she had changed her Instagram profile picture to a very professional image, clearly not taken by me. When I asked her, she said, "Oh, Peyton took it while we were shopping." Peyton, her sister, who lately had been giving me strange looks every time we crossed paths. I started to notice more details: new clothes in her closet, a different perfume, Uber receipts for places she never mentioned. Every time I tried to talk about it, she played the victim. "Are you paranoid because of the wedding stress?" And yes, I started to feel like I was going crazy. 10 days before the wedding, we had dinner with both families to finalize the last details. My parents were covering approximately 70% of the expenses, hers the rest. Her father made several comments about my income, my future plans, even asked me about my retirement. More than welcoming, it felt like they were evaluating me as an investment. On the way home, Lauren mentioned that a friend of hers had received a Range Rover as an anniversary gift from her husband. "Isn't it romantic?" she sighed. I replied that for me, romance was being there for each other in difficult times. Without looking at me, she said, "Yes, but a Range Rover wouldn't be bad either." I should have realized everything before, but we know what love does. It blinds us. I woke up early with a strange mix of nerves and excitement. Despite the tension of the last few months, I kept telling myself that this day would mark the beginning of a new chapter. I thought that once married, everything else would be left behind. So I texted Lauren at 8 a.m. "Good morning, love. Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle." I didn't get a reply. I assumed she was busy with hair, makeup, or preparations. But an hour passed, then another. I called her, and it went straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. That's when I started to feel a knot in my stomach. Something wasn't right. I called one of her bridesmaids. No answer. Everything was too weird. At 11 a.m., I was truly worried. I tried her mother, also voicemail. I called her sister Peyton. No trace. Jason, my best man, tried to reassure me. "Relax, man. These things happen. They're probably running around with their phones on silent." But the feeling didn't disappear. I went to the ceremony venue early. It was scheduled for 2 p.m. There I found her parents, too calm, almost fake. I asked her mother if she had seen Lauren. She smiled at me in such a forced way that it looked like a disguise. "She's a little overwhelmed. You know how brides get." She didn't even look me in the eye. Her father barely greeted me, mumbled something about last-minute doubts, and walked away. They started talking in low voices amongst themselves, checking their phones. I heard her mother say, "She still hasn't answered." When they saw me, they stopped abruptly. I went outside. I tried calling her best friend. "Have you heard from Lauren?" "I can't contact her." Her voice sounded strange. "Not since last night." "You haven't talked to her parents?" I felt my chest tighten. I went straight to the room where Lauren was supposed to be getting ready. I knocked on the door. Nothing. I knocked harder. "Lauren." Silence. It was locked. An employee told me that no one had entered or left all morning. I went back inside. The event organizer was asking me about the schedule. The florist wanted to know where to place the arrangements. The photographers were already there, but no sign of the bride. At 1:30 p.m., the guests started arriving. My whole family was already there with worried faces. Lauren's relatives arrived little by little, some looking around as if searching for answers. At 1:45 p.m., my groomsmen were ready. The bridesmaids were nowhere to be found. At 1:50 p.m., I was near the altar, my heart beating at 1,000 BPM. The officiant looked at me with compassion. The string quartet was playing, but all I could hear was a buzz. And then an internal storm invaded me. "I'm going to look for her. Delay the ceremony. Pretend everything is okay and wait for her to show up as if this were some elaborate joke." Part of me wanted to believe it was just nerves and that she would appear at the last minute. But another, stronger part remembered the strange looks, the silences, the long nights. 5 minutes before the ceremony, still no news. Jason looked at his watch, increasingly anxious. I kept calling, no answer. Then my phone vibrated. A message from Lauren, finally. My hands trembled as I opened it. I thought it would say something like, "I'm late," or that she was having a panic attack. But no. The message said, "I'm sorry, Andrew. I tried, but I can't marry you. You're too predictable for someone like me. I need more excitement and passion. Besides, I'm too young to settle for this life. I hope you understand someday. Please don't hate me." I stared at the screen, reading it over and over again. Rejected 5 minutes before the altar by text message. Jason approached. "Are you okay, man? It's time." I showed him the phone. His expression was one of total astonishment. No way. And at that moment, something changed in me. The pain was immense, like a stone in my chest, but on the outside, I turned to ice. I walked towards the officiant, a kind older man who already seemed to suspect something was wrong. A slight change of plans, I said with a calmness I didn't even understand. Then I walked alone to the altar. The confused looks didn't take long. The murmurs began. I took the microphone, took a deep breath. "Thank you for being here," I said. The place felt absolutely silent. "A few minutes ago, I received a message from Lauren," I said. And I quote, "I'm sorry, I can't do it. I need to live my life for myself. I hope you understand someday." A collective murmur went through the room. Someone on her side started crying. My mother looked like she was going to faint. Jason looked at me intensely and whispered, "Don't stay quiet. You owe it to yourself." He was right. So there will be no wedding today. "Lauren has made her decision," I said firmly. I let the silence settle. Then I added, "But everything is paid for. The food is served. The band is ready. Tonight will not be a wedding reception. It will be a celebration. A celebration of honesty, even when it hurts. Of knowing when something is not right for you, and of having people who support you even in the unexpected." I raised my glass of water. I couldn't drink anything stronger. "Enjoy, eat, let's dance. Let tonight be a party, even if it's not the one we planned." The next few hours were a whirlwind. About 40% of the guests left, mostly from Lauren's side. Her parents and Peyton left almost running. But the rest stayed. My father hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "She's missing out, big guy," he whispered in my ear. The party was awkward at first. Everyone came with long faces. Some left comments as if someone had died. "I'm so sorry." What a cruel way to end things. I just nodded, thanked them for their presence, and tried to divert attention. "Have you tried the canapés? The chef told me they are a specialty." But over time, the atmosphere changed. Jason and my college friends surrounded me, encouraged me, made me laugh. Little by little, the pain was masked by gratitude. One of the guests shouted, "Well, we're ready. At least let's celebrate as if she'd lost the best man." And that sentence suddenly broke the tension in the room. Someone took control of the playlist. The band picked up the cue, and without realizing it, people started dancing. Glasses were filled one after another. The canapés disappeared from the trays. And the room, which before felt awake, transformed into an impromptu party. My cousin Jenna clinked her glass to ask for silence and stood up to toast to Andrew, who today gave us all a lesson in grace in the face of an impossible situation. And so, what seemed like a tragedy became a kind of collective therapy, a celebration of having escaped unscathed. During a quieter moment, my Aunt Linda, who had gone through a complicated divorce, approached me. "You know," she said, "I spent years trying to save something with someone who was never going to appreciate me. You avoided all that suffering in a single day. Now it hurts, but someday you'll see that this was a gift in disguise." Meanwhile, I was trying to process that more than $60,000 had gone down the drain. The venue, the banquet for 150 people, the suits, the flowers, the non-refundable honeymoon in the Maldives. Most of those expenses came from me and my parents. Lauren always had problems with bills or similar excuses. Around 9 p.m., I managed to escape to the cloakroom. I turned off the light and sat alone in the dark. Finally, I allowed myself to breathe. Everything hit me at once: the humiliation, the deception, the disbelief. I put my head in my hands and collapsed. I gave myself exactly 5 minutes. I timed it. Then I got up to face everyone again. Just as I was leaving, I ran into Jason. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," I lied. He put his hand on my shoulder. "Look, whatever you're feeling now is valid. But you have to understand something. What she did says something about her, not about you. There are people who don't know how to recognize something valuable when they have it right in front of them." I nodded, not trusting my voice to answer. Oh, and by the way, he added with a smile, your Aunt Linda is warming up on the dance floor. You have to see it to believe it. He got a real laugh out of me, the first of the whole day. And that moment marked a change. We ended up closing the place. The last 20 guests and I sat around a large table, reminiscing, laughing at past stories, making plans to see each other more often. It wasn't the night I had imagined, but it wasn't the total disaster I feared either. I didn't hear from Lauren that night, or the next day, or the one after that. Complete silence. I went back to my apartment, technically ours, although she had already moved most of her things to a suite at her parents' house the week before the wedding. The place felt empty. I couldn't sleep in the bed, so I spent 2 nights in a row on the sofa. On the 3rd day, my mother came to see me. When she came in, she saw the unwashed dishes, the piled-up clothes, and without saying a word, she opened the windows, put a load of laundry on, ordered takeout, and sat with me to watch mindless action movies. She didn't try to make me talk, nor did she give me empty advice. She just stayed with me. After the 3rd movie, I broke the silence. You know what the worst part is? I still don't understand why. Years together, and she couldn't even tell me to my face. My mother took my hand and said, "There are people who don't have the courage to face the consequences of their decisions. That's not your fault." On the 4th day, my phone exploded. Missed calls, voicemails, desperate texts. "Andrew, I made a terrible mistake. We need to talk. Please answer. I love you." I didn't answer, but I needed answers. So I called Chloe, a mutual friend who had disappeared after the disaster. She answered immediately, her voice tense. "Look," she said, "I didn't know how to tell you, but you deserve to know everything." That afternoon, we met for coffee. She came with proof, screenshots, messages, call logs. It turns out that several of our friends found out right after the wedding and were furious, not only with Lauren, but with themselves for not having seen it coming. It turns out it wasn't a nervous breakdown. Lauren had it all planned with a guy named Nolan, an older, ostentatious man who boasted about his business empire and his life of freedom. They met at a digital marketing workshop, and she fell in love with his facade. The plan was clear: marry me, gain legal access to my assets, and after 6 months, divorce and live off the alimony while building her career as an influencer. That's why she insisted so much on a luxurious wedding, the honeymoon, joint accounts. Nolan filled her head with phrases like, "Boost your brand and secure your future." They thought I was a fool with money and that Lauren would come out of that marriage with a good sum, and together they would invest in their content empire. But by canceling the wedding before signing everything, it all fell apart. I contacted her roommate, whom I barely knew, but who had spoken privately with Jason. She confirmed Chloe's story and added something else. Nolan left her as soon as he found out that we hadn't signed the marriage certificate. No marriage, no assets, no alimony, no legal advantage. He kicked her out of the suite and blocked her everywhere. She was stranded without accommodation, her card was declined, and she ended up calling her father to pick her up with her suitcases at the reception of a boutique hotel. She looked like a contestant eliminated from a reality show. And as if that wasn't enough, Nolan had a girlfriend in another city. Lauren was just an affair with no future. She found out when the real girlfriend sent her screenshots of their own conversations. In short, her great plan crashed before takeoff, and all she had left was a ticket back to the guest room in her parents' house. You want to talk about poetic justice? That's poetic justice in non-refundable designer heels. Now Lauren was desperate. She called me again a week after the wedding. Out of morbid curiosity, I answered. "Andrew, thank God." I didn't say anything. I waited. I made a huge mistake. It was the stress, the pressure. Nolan meant nothing. "We can fix this. Tell them I had a panic attack. Let's reorganize the wedding." She had the nerve to try to invent an alternative story. I kept my voice firm, without a trace of emotion. "You sent me a text message rejecting me. You had your escape route planned with another guy. There's nothing to fix, Lauren. This is over. She collapsed instantly. No, Andrew. Don't say that. It was a mistake. I really love you. I replied, or is it because your new source of income disappeared and your castle in the air collapsed, and now suddenly I'm Prince Charming again? You don't understand, she cried. He tricked me. He promised me things he never fulfilled. He left me stranded in a disgusting motel. I had to call my dad. I let out a low, exhausted laugh. And that's supposed to move me? You chose the wrong scammer, and now you expect me to take you back as if nothing happened. I didn't know how to react. I made a mistake. Please. Then came the desperation. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I paused, looked at her in silence for a second, and replied frankly, I don't care. And I blocked her. The next morning, I received an email from her mother with the subject, "You owe us an explanation." I should have deleted it without reading it, but I have a bad habit of facing chaos head-on. The message was full of demands: reimbursement for their flights, accommodation, spa treatments, dress fittings, and even emotional damage. According to them, I had to compensate them for allowing the wedding to go ahead when I supposedly already knew that Lauren wasn't ready. As if I now had psychic powers. The final blow was glorious. We expect a full refund within 14 days, or we will take legal action. I read it twice. I even checked the calendar in case it was an April Fool's joke. But no. My lawyer responded with a single line: there is no legal basis. Please stop contacting Andrew. Then Lauren's father, who had never said a word during our entire relationship, decided to become the defender of family honor. He called me after midnight, his voice shaky, clearly drunk. You humiliated my daughter. You caused her to run away. You ruined our family name. You owe us compensation. Perfect, I said. I'm still waiting for your lawyer. In the following days, I was bombarded with messages from unknown numbers, almost all full of insults. Matt, my best friend, received a direct message from Peyton, Lauren's sister, hinting that she would reveal the truth online if I didn't do the right thing. Matt simply took a screenshot and uploaded a video of him doing a cartwheel on the beach with the caption, "This is what you wanted." #legend. The most incredible thing was that no one, not a single person from their circle, mentioned what Lauren had actually done. In their distorted version, I was the problem, the villain who refused to finance her escape, the one who didn't stay quiet while she left me standing at the altar. The text she sent me, they said, was taken out of context or sent under pressure. And some, the most distant or naive, believed it. An acquaintance of hers, whom I barely said hello to twice, wrote to me, "I always felt something wasn't right with you. Now I understand why she couldn't marry you." I didn't answer. What for? Lauren began posting vague messages on Instagram about escaping toxic environments and reconnecting with her survivor and body-positive values, as if she were the victim of all this mess. I didn't go out to deny it publicly. I just told anyone who asked me directly. She sent me a text message 5 minutes before the ceremony telling me she couldn't marry me. She left with another guy. It didn't work out. The end. I showed the message to anyone who doubted it. Most immediately understood what had happened, although that didn't stop her family. They kept writing to me. They even sent a printed letter to my apartment. They wanted me to pay for everything, from planning expenses to the value of returned or donated gifts. Peyton also proposed that I should cover her sister's therapy sessions for the trauma she herself had caused. It was the height of audacity. I went back to my lawyer. He read their claims and laughed. He assured me that they had absolutely no legal basis. He replied with a formal email, "Andrew considers this matter closed." Lauren unilaterally canceled the relationship and the wedding. No compensation is due. Any further attempts will be treated as harassment. I blocked all the new numbers and emails that appeared after that. Then I sat down to think about what to do with the $18,000 non-refundable honeymoon trip to the Maldives. Lauren had been obsessed with that destination. She personally chose the overwater bungalow. She showed pictures to everyone. Look at the ocean, the private terrace, the dolphins you can see from the room. She repeated every chance she got. The travel agency confirmed that I couldn't get the money back, but I could change the name of the second person on the reservation and let that $18,000 disappear. It felt like giving her the victory. Besides, I already had 2 weeks of vacation. I had earned them. So I called Matt. What are you doing next week? Would you like to surf in the Maldives? Silence on the other side. Then he answered, Are you serious? Totally. The trip is paid for, non-refundable. Should we take advantage of it? Hell yes. Matt is a surf instructor at a local beach. He practically lives in the ocean. If anyone could enjoy a tropical paradise, it was him. 2 weeks later, we were flying first class to the Maldives. We took our boards and turned that trip into an unforgettable adventure. We stayed in the same bungalow she had chosen. We surfed spectacular waves, ate incredible seafood, and disconnected from everything. The resort staff clearly expected a honeymoon couple, and instead they got 2 friends with surfboards. Still, they were extremely professional. One night a waiter approached me while we were having dinner. Sir, if I may, this was a honeymoon trip? I nodded. He leaned in slightly and said, My wife left me 2 days before our wedding. She ran off with my cousin. He touched his chest. You did well to come anyway. That unexpected comment impacted me more than anything else. A complete stranger in the middle of the ocean telling me he understood what I was going through was deeply healing. We spent our days surfing at dawn, when the sea was like a mirror and the sky was just beginning to light up. I don't know if it was the trip, the waves, or just the silence, but something inside me began to change. There's something about the ocean that makes you see things from a different perspective. When you're out there on a board, you realize how small you are. The ocean doesn't stop to think about your problems. It simply is. Either you face it or it leaves you behind. Honestly, the trip ended up being much better than a traditional honeymoon would have been. No arguments or reproaches for checking work emails. No one demanding perfect photos for social media. Just 2 friends enjoying paradise, surfing at dawn, naps in hammocks, and meals fit for kings. There was a moment that remained etched in my memory. Around the 5th day, we were sitting on the bungalow terrace, watching the sun set below the horizon with a cold drink in hand. Matt turned to me and said, You know what's crazy? If she hadn't left, you'd be trapped in a marriage with someone who didn't really love you, and you wouldn't even have realized how close you were to avoiding a catastrophe. And he was right. As painful as her departure was, at least it happened before signing legal papers, before thinking about children, joint mortgages, or a life so intertwined that breaking it would have been even more destructive. A day before returning home, I uploaded a single photo to my private Instagram account. Just Matt and I with our boards under our arms, smiling in front of the crystal clear water. The caption read, New tides, better paths. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't mention the wedding or the rejection. But, as expected, some acquaintance took a screenshot and sent it directly to Lauren. I heard she cried for hours after seeing the photo. But they weren't tears of regret. It was something else, frustration, rage. How dare I enjoy the trip that, according to her, belonged to her? And although it sounds cruel, that gave me some peace. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because it confirmed what I already suspected. She wasn't hurt by losing me, but by the life she thought she was going to have with me. It was a brutal relief to realize that I dodged something worse than a bullet. It was like avoiding an explosion. It's been about 4 months since then. Everything calmed down. The lawsuit ceased after a very firm email from my lawyer. The gossip also lost steam. In the end, when your version is based on facts and the other person fills in the gaps with lies, the truth prevails. I found out that after Nolan left her, and she realized she wasn't going to get back with me, she ended up living in her sister Peyton's house. But that didn't last long. Lauren expected Peyton to support her emotionally and financially. She didn't look for a job, complained about everything, treated the place as if it were a hotel. 2 months were enough for Peyton to kick her out because even family affection has its limits. According to several acquaintances, living with Lauren was a nightmare. She slept until noon, left everything dirty, spent hours checking social media and crying about the life she should have had, ordered expensive food using Peyton's card without asking, took her clothes without returning them, and burst into shouts every time someone suggested she look for a job or contribute something to the household. In the end, she went back to her parents. She got a basic office job, but continues to complain on social media about her financial situation and how unfair life is, as if the universe owes her something. She never acknowledges that all of this is a consequence of her own decisions. Her current account is full of vague phrases like reborn from the ashes or sometimes the wrong decisions lead us to the right place, things that sound good but don't fool anyone who knows what really happened. Her victim act is more elaborate than ever. Not a hint of responsibility, not a sign of repentance. Just resentment because her perfect plan fell apart. And I'm fine. Very well, in fact. I'm not going to lie, the first few weeks were difficult. I felt stupid, betrayed, heartbroken. But that dodging a bullet party, as strange as it sounded, set the tone I needed. My friends and family were there from the beginning. Going on a trip with Matt was the best thing I could have done. A clean break. A way to salvage something positive from the wreckage. Yes, financially it was a hard hit, more than $60,000 lost between the wedding and the trip. But money comes and goes. What I recovered was something much more valuable, self-esteem, the freedom of not being tied to someone who saw me as an ATM and a platform for a life of appearances. I didn't lose someone valuable. I lost someone who thought my effort was just a way to fulfill someone else's dream. I got rid of a family that treated me like a wallet, not a person. I freed myself from the burden of building a future with someone incapable of valuing what it really takes to build something lasting. Some friends have offered to introduce me to new people, but honestly, I'm not in a hurry. Maybe in time I'll be ready, but for now my focus is on me. I'm working on rebuilding every part of my life, but from a different place, one where I don't need to prove anything to anyone or support projects that weren't really mine. Today I have clarity. I know what I want and, more importantly, what I'm no longer willing to tolerate. Everything that happened hurt, yes, but it also opened my eyes. It freed me from an illusion that had me trapped. And although it was difficult at first, I wouldn't trade that lesson for anything. If you're going through something similar, don't lose sight of this. What you feel like a wound today may actually be the way out you needed. It's not the end of the road. It's the beginning of something much more authentic.